Well, it's like you said, if he's not filing the flight plans under the 130 Rule 135, which would be income producing, where's the money coming from?
So what he had did was is he would fly. What we had learned through the interviews is he was flying contractors. So he might have flown 15, 20 different contractors down to Guyana to work on this hangar. And at the time, if you look up a flight to Guyana from JFK, it could be $500. But he would fly these contractors down on his plane, and it would cost $40,000 to fly there and back. So it made no sense. Why wouldn't you just put these contractors on a commercial flight? Well, me thinking about it, if there was ever an issue where something was found, I would maybe blame the contractor.
Welcome to Game of Crimes.
Now, the aircraft that he was using, these weren't just twin engines, were they? These are very nice jet planes, right?
Yeah, again, Lear jets. He had actually in his money laundering scheme, he had purchased his first jet, and when you're earning cash and you're spending it now on fuel and maintenance and pay off the plane, now you're spending cash to pay off the previous owner of the hangars, and you're depositing cash and moving it away. It all kind of stems now from this cash, and it dirties up everything that he's touching. So he actually had three planes, one of which was seized at the border for the border stop. Then another one that was seized, we seized, that was his main plane that was actually being it was being fixed when he was flying the second plane. And then we seized a third plane, which was a plane that we saw him purchase, sourced with the drug cash. But it was a plane that he was going to dump more money into maintaining it and getting it up to speed. And that was, a bigger plane, a Challenger, I think it was.
Yeah, let's roll back for a little bit and let's go back to some of the investigation because, I mean, you're getting all this stuff. I want to focus a little bit too on when you said you were doing traditional investigative stuff. So tell us about that. Where did you guys set up at? And, what kind of things were you doing in terms of, once the plane takes off, that's kind of out of your hands. But was he moving around Morristown? Was he moving around the area? Kind of give us an idea about the scope of how far out you were following this guy and what he was doing.
Well, so, I mean, it's hard being that I'm in an office in Union County, and he was living up in Passaic County, the northern part of Passaic County, and he went north to Stewart International Airport.
And where's that airport located at?
It's in the southern part of New York State. I think it's probably about an hour from where I'm at. So it's right up 87, and it maybe an hour, 50 minutes outside of the city.
So he would drive, he had a home there and then would drive up there?
Yeah. And so, so there would be times, and then now he had the clearance to get into the airport and I didn't. So as soon as you'd follow him to the airport, you would, lose him, or, if I did surveil him, there was, times where.
I'm sorry, is that what they call the fixed base operator? He would go into that area, the FBO area, where it's only for private pilots and charters and stuff?
Right. And so it was very hard to access any of those and then that's where Pete Chartier came and got us onto the tarmac up in Stewart, and we're sitting out watching, him board his plane. But, what you don't realize is how much maintenance goes involved in these planes. And when he had actually left to go to San Juan, he was having mechanical issues. He was having, flap issues where he had to have them fixed, and there was a delay, and so
flaps
all
are
these
kind
things
of important to take off and land on a plane.
Yeah.
We all might want to make sure those things work.
Yeah. So the stop and the refueling actually was a 2-day process, and filing the flight plans and then him announcing that he's leaving. Then ultimately he's stopped and searched and.
So how many folks are working this case right now? It's you. How many people do you have at this point in time on the case?
So I'm going to take a step back, because at the time, so within IRS, always have had a handler. I've had a special agent that kind of oversees a task force. So at the time, it was a senior agent, this Stephen Helmstetter. So Steve Helmstetter did all of the IRS paperwork for me, and I just kind of built the case, and then he kind of oversaw it with me. And then anything I needed within the IRS was going directly to Steve. So I had Steve Helmstetter, and then there was Bill Mateo, who was another senior agent who kind of, hovered around in the task force, worked his own cases, but was a resource. And then there was Cecilia Fowler, who was also in the task force, but did a lot of the asset, forfeiture. And if we needed appraisals of different things, she would be involved in that. And then I had task force agents, but this case lasted so long, it actually lasted past most of the agents I worked with. So, some of the guys had retired and moved on, and Eric Schmitz and Joe Moretto, and I'm going to name drop like crazy, Donnie Wilkenfeld, and, Paul Hahn, Alethea Baldwin. So all of these people I've worked with or had like little hands involved in this. But, now that I had the financial picture, and I was comfortable with where I was at, and I was ready to seize assets. Now I start bringing in, Pete Chartier with Homeland Security, Steve Tockerman with FAA. Then we get into the DEA groups. So it's, 3 or 4 agents with DEA. Then we get into the Rochester group. Their task force was multiple agents. And then we get into San Juan, and San Juan was CBP and HSI. So there was a lot of different people that were involved in this and helped move this along.
With you putting 1,200 cash transactions into a spreadsheet, printing them out, how long did that take you? I mean, you got to start looking at this and going, "Oh shit, this is going to kill me, man. I am going to be brain dead by the time I put all these numbers in."
So you start building a picture based on grand jury subpoena returns, and then you realize, well, I don't have this piece of it, or I don't have that piece of it, or why is this mortgage getting this payment? Or, there's so many holes to a financial story that you could speculate it, but at the end of the day, the structuring is the structuring, and going to physically see assets like planes, like houses, like cars, like you could paint that whole picture. But you're right, it's the underlying reason, it's the underlying suspicious unlawful act, the SUA, that is the specified unlawful act, the SUA, that ultimately gets you to the money laundering charges, which is ultimately where I wanted to get to, and the drugs led us there.
So once you establish that predicate, basically, this is okay. This thing is now the product of ill-gotten gains, like a plane. What's the level of what's the burden, I say, now to go after plane number 2 and plane number 3 in a house? I mean, basically, once you get that first anchor in, it's pretty easy to roll up all the other stuff, right?
Yeah, right. So based on the interviews, based on the DEA investigation, we had a very good picture as to what he was doing. But I'll say that the activity started in 11. My case started in 14. He's indicted in Western District in the summer of 15. And meanwhile, so when the secondary happened, that was November of 14. Then the DEA case ramps up, and now they have indictments on him in in summer of 15. We then supersede the indictment, take over the case in 2017, and we indict him in New Jersey in 2017.
So real quick, supersede. So when you file that, let people know what that means. So you filed a superseding indictment and you took it over. What does that mean?
So in Western District in New York, they had the drug angle. They had everything moving up into the seizures of cocaine, and had the conspiracy that he was involved in, and he was charged in 15. Well, then now fast forward to 17, we then take the drug and the different pieces of the drug evidence that they've uncovered, our DEA group in New York uncovered, and then we mirror it with the money, and that indictment goes away, and then we supersede and charge him in the district in New Jersey for everything. It was 8 counts of conspiracy to distribute, to import, structuring, the money laundering, the spending. Like it was all wrapped into one. And ultimately, he goes to trial in 18 and gets found guilty of all 8 counts. 19, he's sentenced to 13 years. And now, just in March of 2021, the Third Circuit affirms the conviction.
Well, wait
So,
a minute.
from
Back up for a
start to
second.
finish, this goes.
All that work, you guys spent more time on the case than he got in prison, it almost seems like.
I don't want to go down that road.
Oh, well, but that, just at first blush, with the amount of money, the amount of dope, and everything he was doing, 13 years seems awful light. Did this guy cooperate? Did he provide material information on anything, or did he just clam up, go to trial, and take his lumps?
Well, he went to trial and took his lumps. I mean, with any case, the goal is to climb the ladder, right? And the ladder kept, I guess, seeming to stop, and he took his lumps, and that was that. He went to trial.
You guys have a lot of sweat equity involved in this, and for him to, I'm smarter than you guys, I'm going to take you to trial. Well, good luck in the Fed pen there, big boy.
Oh yeah, he was offered a plea, and he turned it down, and that was his nature was, I guess he was just wanted to be the smartest guy in the room, and he decided that's I'll test this, and the jury didn't bite.
Do you remember what the plea? Do you remember what he was offered? Like plead to what? 5 years? I mean, would have got 5 years, 6 years?
I think it was more than that, if I remember correctly. It might have been 10.
All right. Yeah, still, man, but I'd shave off 3 years. I mean, 3 years is a long time in federal prison. So even though it's probably cush.
And that was the first federal case that I was involved in, and the trial prep that went into that. So now I have to name drop the two trial attorneys that came in, and like I said, it passed several different attorneys along the way, but it was Jonathan Peck and Tom Carney, who are both out of the District of New Jersey, that ultimately took this across the finish line. And then it was multiple, attorneys after that were involved in the appeals. And, now that I think of the appeal process, there's probably even more attorneys involved. But, it was a case that was well supported by the District of New Jersey, that's for sure.
Was there, and so in your investigation, was there any evidence to suggest where he was getting his cocaine from? Was he working independently?
Yeah, again, learning all of this information, I didn't realize what a hub Guyana was for cocaine. And, we all know that the value of cocaine is all in the transportation of it, right? So you're buying it for pennies on the dollar, and then if you're transporting it from one country to the next, now when you get it on the airplane, by the time it gets up in New Jersey, it's $30,000, $35,000 a kilo of cocaine. I think it's gone down a lot now, but it at the time he was the transportation part of it, so he was buying it for substantially amount less, taking the risk with the transportation of it, and then making his money on the back end.
Were you guys able to discover once he got the cocaine up to Jersey? Do you know what he did with it?
So he dealt with middlemen. So one of the middlemen that he dealt with was the one that cooperated at trial.
Okay.
So the middleman would take the coke and deliver it to wherever, and then bring him back the money. And it would.
I was going to say, if he had to fuel in Puerto Rico going down, he would have had to refuel in Puerto Rico coming back, right? How was the cocaine not discovered through just even a dog? I mean, you figure you got that much coke in the plane, at some point a dog would have hit on it.
That's if a dog was at the airport. So, there was, I don't want to say thousands of planes. I never stepped foot in Puerto Rico for any part of the investigation.
Okay.
But
so he's just basically getting lost in the noise, right?
Yep.
He's just one of thousands of planes coming in.
Yeah. But after that piece of it, there was concealment stuff that came out. Like he had placed $150,000 in a certain part of the plane that, now I think, okay, now you're seeing 620,000 going to Guyana. The thought is it was drugs. Now Guyana is now, and it was starting to be a hub. Our guy had a lot of political connections. We learned that he flew the president of Guyana around on his private plane and took him to different islands, and he touted that he knew the Ministry of defense and all these different people. And he, like I said, he was able to build the hangar on state property. But what had actually happened was, after he was arrested, going into the next election, we learned that um, a new party came into power, and they ran on the corruption platform, the anti-corruption platform. So, again, being an investigator in New Jersey and all of those different ties back into Guyana. Again, I never stepped foot into Guyana, but now's the time to talk about the different attachés that are available to you in federal work. IRS has attachés that do oversee Guyana, and there was a response from the IRS attachés to get involved in that. They do have a wide reach across the world, as does DEA. Or if you know that there is a network out there that does support the agents that are working in the various states, and it's impressive when you get a chance to see that.
I was in a couple foreign countries where we ran into the legats, the
Yep.
legal attaché. So you had the FBI's got a presence in a lot of countries to help facilitate investigations. Ran into DEA guys, like you say. It's always good because they don't really have official power, but they're really to help coordinate between requests from U.S. law enforcement and the host country. And you would need a lot of times a mutual legal assistance treaty in MLAT, because some countries just absolutely do not cooperate, in investigations. So it makes it very difficult. But let's not get too far off of that point first, because I want to talk about that. This guy, Steve, you pulled up the press release from DOJ, right, on this guy's arrest and stuff.
I was just talking about his Passaic County, New Jersey man sentenced to 156 months in prison for trafficking hundreds of kilos of coke into Jersey and New York, laundering 10.2 million in cash. Which that's just the amount you could prove, right, Keith?
Right. That was the cash that we had going through the banks, going through the third party accounts, what he paid the contractor to build the hangar. We had unindicted co-conspirators that were involved, including,
Was one of those the president of
No.
a country named Guyana?
no, he had family members that moved money and paid assets for him. So
Would you hazard a guess at $10 million? Do you think that was 10% of what he had done, or 2%, or
I would guess there was more. I mean,
considerably more?
he had property in Guyana. He had
Was that forfeited?
No.
Did the Guyana authorities do anything with that?
Not that I'm aware of. I didn't. Not that I'm.
There's
aware
nothing
of.
in the press release about that.
And talk about unindicted co-conspirators for a second too, because you have people who are indicted, then they also what they call unindicted. What makes the difference between somebody you take to trial and somebody that is quote an unindicted co-conspirator?
Well, so in this case, there was family members that had bank accounts that money had moved through, and whether or not we could have indicted them, the decision was to not indict them. And it was. That's just how this case played out.
A lot of times with the peripheral players like that, you have to prove knowledge and intent. Knowledge that there was a crime and intent to commit that crime, and that becomes a real challenge unless you've got somebody that's just a good snitch, somebody working on the inside, or it sounds like this guy was leaving a paper trail that a blind guy could follow.
Thanks.
No, sorry.
There you go. Yeah. Don't need a highly trained investigator. We just need a guy with a cane and a red tip and just bounce over a couple currency transaction reports.
There was an extensive paper trail, and that was a piece.
Was he ever contacted? Was that the first time he had been targeted, or did you when you look back, had he been on somebody else's radar during this time, before? Because he obviously didn't start 3 years before that, right? I mean, he was probably been doing this for a while.
Well, he got into the airplane business shortly before that, and there was some I guess he had flown down to Guyana, and what is a private plane flying down to Guyana so many times, doing this. So I don't know if he was on anybody's radar before, but it was. It definitely, raised a red flag with us, with me.
Well, it's like you said, if he's not filing the flight plans under the Rule 135, which would be income producing, where's the money coming from?
So what he did is he would fly. What we had learned through the interviews is he was flying contractors. So he might have flown 15, 20 different contractors down to Guyana to work on this hangar.
Mm-hmm.
And at the time, if you look up a flight to Guyana from JFK, it could be $500. But he would fly these contractors down on his plane, and it would cost $40,000 to fly there and back. So it made no sense. Why wouldn't you just put these contractors on a commercial flight? Well, me thinking about it, if there was ever an issue where something was found, I would maybe blame the contractor and say, "Well, that's not mine. I don't know where that came from." But that never came out. When he was stopped at the border, he was stopped with a family member and a pilot. So I don't think he had that ability to kind of say, "No, the cash is mine."
Not quite as smart as he thought he was.
When they stopped him at the border, you said, "Let's talk about that 620 in cash too." Well, we're going to tie some things up together. Was that you said that there were some traps, some concealment in the plane? Was that what it was? Was that thing concealed in a hidden compartment in the plane?
No, not like I thought it would be. It was in a suitcase. Like a majority of it was in one suitcase, but it was wrapped in a way that was, typically, banded in $10,000 blocks. A lot of 20s. That was another thing that came up, is when we were going to trial, we wanted through the grand jury, we wanted to know how much of the cash did he move? What was the increments? What was it? And we found out that a majority of the cash that he deposited was all 20s, and that just speaks volumes that it's street money that has been converted.
Yeah, because people don't realize too. When we had George Young on the podcast, he would know how much $1 million weighed, but $1 million in 100s is 1/5 the size of $1 million in 20s. So you've just increased your weight, 5 times, right? So somebody who's doing stuff in 20s has just he's given himself a logistics problem as opposed to transporting 100s. And that was the great thing about a lot of the stuff, is that's the way it came in. You couldn't really go down to a bank, say, "Hey, I'd like to exchange my $100,000 in 20s, for 100s," right? Because that would trigger obviously some kind of a report. Hey, but speaking to that real quick, are there certain countries, for example, like Guyana or other places, to where transactions from their banks would trigger something in the U.S.? I mean, was there some way that these things, whether it went through the SWIFT system, the international banking system, or other words, would there be international transactions that would trigger things back in the United States to where you'd get an inkling, hey, something connected to Guyana and the United States is going on?
I think a majority of the funds, if he brought them down there, stayed down there and
Okay.
got reinvested into the economy down there. But I didn't.
So everything we're talking about here were basically the things that were reported came from U.S. banks doing the reporting.
Well, so that brings up another question. Was he? I'm guessing he had a company address in the U.S., which would require him to file tax returns.
So that's a big thing within my task force. I'd never reviewed tax returns unless we had what they call an ex parte order, which is signed by a judge. To see a tax return within the IRS is like an act of God, believe it or not. Like there are very specific rules that they follow, and I didn't look at tax returns in a fashion that many people think, "Oh, you're the IRS, you can just look it up." But on a money laundering task force, we don't look at tax returns as a normal case. Like I don't have the ability to investigate tax crimes, at the IRS.
But that was, so if you were working a multi-agency investigation, regardless of where, you always wanted an IRS agent assigned, especially in OCDEF case.
Yeah.
Because they could look at that stuff.
Yeah, but my famous line is I don't really even work here, from Seinfeld. Like that was
George Costanza. I don't really work here. I've got the Penske file and I have the corner office,
That was Kramer. Well, these reports mean absolutely nothing. I don't really work here.
Hey, but speaking of that though, because we've all worked cases with the IRS, and they do get some good information. But from your standpoint, I'm not trying to create a percentage, but but it sounds like you were in a sense treated as the case agent or the lead agent. Is that the way?
Yeah, I was.
The amount of work that was being done,
and I was the only IRS. I was the only person from IRS that testified in the trial, so I was designated the lead case agent by the AUSAs. And I started it, and with now, let me name drop another one. When Steve Helmstetter retired, there was an agent, Mike McGarry, who I work with, and he was now overseeing the task force. And it was Mike McGarry that helped me get this case across the finish line. Like, he did all of the heavy lifting with, additional, search warrants, or trial prep, or, getting things
Well,
organized.
let's not gloss over that, because I know from talking with Murph, we've had other guests on, sometimes the trial and the trial prep and that phase of it takes longer sometimes than the investigation
Yeah,
did
it
as
was,
you're going through this.
it
So
was brutal.
tell us about how brutal that was. I mean, it's necessary, right? But how brutal is it compared to what you did at a local level in terms of cases you work there?
Yeah, no, this was by far it was exhausting. It was 20-hour days. The night before I testified, I was up with the AUSA until 4:30 in the morning, going through things, and to turn around and get up at 7, then and get on the stands and talk about detailed financial records. It was, yeah, it was a process. But you have to go through, and you have your interviews, and people are telling you one thing, and then if they're going on to the stand, you want to make sure that they're telling you the same thing. And then it's it's going through, and making sure you have the story down pat, and you're not steering their testimony, but you want what they know out of them.
Make it sure it's consistent
Right,
with what they said to
right,
you before in their
right.
interviews.
No, I was going to say, and then you have cooperators involved in this, and there's a reason why they're cooperating, and you just want the truth out of them. Like, they're, that is a big piece of it too. So I forget how many people we had testified, but like I said, it was a 2-week trial, and we had managers and bookkeepers and construction of people, and yeah, it was a process.
Let's not talk about people. Let's talk about boxes. How many boxes did you have to wheel into the courtroom?
Yeah, and like I said, this was my first time at trial, and all of the exhibits that were introduced, and reviewing the transcripts, and labeling exhibits. And yeah, I mean, it was telling a story in front of a jury to make it to make it, and it's a financial case, so it's difficult to tell that story in a way that you're not going to put people to sleep too. And when you can show video, or you have you know the cash, just does it makes it that much more sexy when you're talking about that level of cash that was moved. I mean, that's a lot
How
of
many
people.
boxes though did you bring into the courtroom though? How many? I mean,
We did, it was every day was a different, a new series of boxes, right? So yeah, it was a lot. And we did, the case was out of Trenton, which was, it was south of us, which we all had to stay in a hotel. We all had to use, a different office that we weren't accustomed to. So everything traveled with us. Yeah, it was a process. And some of us stayed at different hotels, so then we had to travel to the hotels at night. And yeah.
Were you the investigator that sat at the prosecutor's table during the trial?
Yes, yeah, it was myself and Mike McGarry. We sat behind. We were in, like, the no, actually, I wasn't at the table until that day. We sat right behind the bullpen.
Which means you got to pay attention.
Oh yeah,
That's the
yeah,
tough part.
everything.
how long was the jury out?
Not long, not long. It was pretty quick.
I didn't think so.
No, it was pretty quick.
And that's just appropriate for somebody that thinks they're going to, oh, I'll show you guys, I'm going to trial. Well,
Yeah.
step on up here, Skippy. We got something special for you.
I love those trials where it takes longer to elect the foreperson of the jury than it does to come to a
Yeah.
verdict. It's like, oh, we knew he was guilty. We just had to figure out the paperwork, to turn this in.
Well, sometimes they drag it on because they got to fix coffee, and there's probably some Danish or something there, and they drag it out just a little bit.
Yeah, they want a little bit of freebie. So, but hey, but from the time so this thing started in 2011, it took till you said 2019 till you said the appeal came through in 2020 run. It was denied, right?
No. They affirmed his
I
conviction.
mean, affirmed,
Yeah.
right? That's what I'm saying. They affirmed his conviction. Whatever appeal he had, everything was denied. So this is a 10-year process. Is it finally over?
So there's still assets that are forfeited, or I'm sorry, that are encumbered but not forfeited. So there's
Why?
it's just the semantics of it. There's hangars, there's planes, there's cars, and there's bank accounts.
Do you get any kind of a financial interest in another country, like anything in Guyana? Is there anything the U.S. can do with property that was purchased down there with assets or money that came from U.S. banks or the conspiracy in the United
So
States?
I didn't have any of those angles, and there was nothing that I could prove through our channels. So whatever if they decided to act on it, I'm not aware of it. There's various press releases of different things they did, but I don't know if anything was ever acted on it.
How much stuff is still left in the U.S. to seize?
Nothing left to seize. Just to
Just to process
yeah,
it? I
just the
mean, yeah.
process, right?
How much do you think is left? Planes, cash, buildings?
Well, we've like different things that were valued, probably I don't know, 6 million. But again, we seize things in between 14 and going up to trials. You have different assets, and this is with anything. There's a depreciation to it. So who knows what happens? There's expenses to maintain it. There's a whole 9 yards. So the end game is that you took the ill-gotten gains away from the actor. That's the ultimate process of this whole thing, is take that, and then I let the courts and all that stuff settle that stuff on their own.
And look, I'm looking at the press release here, and they're showing that he was ordered to forfeit interest in 2 jet planes, 2 airplane hangars, multiple properties, a Lexus SUV, among other properties traceable to his crimes. And he was also ordered, they entered a money judgment against him for $9.3 million when it came to sentencing. So I doubt he might have one pair of clean underwear left. That might be about all.
Yeah. Issued by a federal correction center
Yeah, it's
somewhere,
orange.
FCI.
It's orange.
Yeah, it's orange, orange. Hey, well, Keith, let's build from this, because there was one other interesting thing we wanted to talk to you about too, because something that's obviously been going on, and I don't know if it's tied into it, but we want you to talk about it too. But obviously, we've been talking about the issues of fentanyl coming across the border, about how now the precursors are coming in from China. The cartels now are manufacturing these things. So money has to be going back and forth between China and Mexico and the US and things like that. And I'm concerned just from a national security standpoint about what's going on, how they're avoiding it, because you've a huge country, 1.3 billion people, the number of banks they have, the number of different ways they have to hide stuff. You wanted to talk, or we put a tag in there about, let's talk about Chinese money laundering. So let's talk about Chinese money laundering. What should we know about it? I mean, kind of give us the landscape?
So typically when you saw the normal money launderers, they would charge a 10 to 12% vig to launder money. That was offered to this other guy, and he decided he wanted to do it on his own, right? So you can see where that led him. The biggest piece of money laundering now that I see that, so again, I left Morristown. I left to go back to Morristown in 2019. And then I came back, and I'm now part-time with IRS and DEA. And one of the cases that I jumped on early, when I was trying to teach the new agent, the new officer that's at DEA, I was teaching him a little bit about how I build cases. And we stumbled upon, a case that was Chinese money laundering. And again, now learning all of this stuff, and I'm going to name drop him. His name is Scott Pino. He's Aces.
So
In
before
terms
you
of
get into the rest of the thing, you just kind of gloss over. You say, "Well, we stumbled onto this case." Define what stumbling onto this case means. That's like saying, "Yeah," and then we climbed Mount Everest. Okay, how the fuck did you get to Mount Everest to begin with? So, what does stumbling on mean?
so all of my cases have revolved around cash, right? Like the movement of cash. So we're researching different leads that have come across our table, that we are getting through the DEA. And I would show him, like, so in the meantime, I've worked a couple of different cases, one of which is going to be coming to light in probably the next 6 months. That is a very big case that I worked with some very good agents on. That's the case that I came back to, case specific within DEA, that there was extraditions and big money movement tied to the purchase of cashier's checks. So cashier's checks is obviously a great way to move money. You're moving bulk cash into a cashier's check, and now it's moving. So how I was developing cases led me into the Chinese money laundering piece of it. And let me just back up and explain, what's happening, from what I see. And this is a very, 40,000 foot view. Is there are capital flight laws coming out of China, meaning a wealthy person in China can't just move their money out of China. There are,
Like a Jack
$50,000.
Ma billionaire, Alibaba and stuff. They're trying to keep all the money in the country, aren't they?
Right. So there are currency restriction laws. And so what they do around that is they will use different professional money service businesses, and they will move money in a way that never leaves China, or leaves China in a different way. And there's mirrored transactions that happen in the United States. So let's say, John Smith in China wants to move money to a family member. The money coming out of China is not going directly to the family member. It's being paid off through some other type of money broker. So the money broker in the United States might go to a cash intensive organization, such as, a DTO, a drug organization, and say, I will help you move your money, but I need your money more than almost I need to move it. So I will do it for less of a percentage. Then the money goes to another money broker in the United States, and then that money broker is told where to pay out that family. So the currency in the United States is then converted in a way that could be moved, and then it goes off into pay off John Smith's relatives from China. And then the money broker then tells the Chinese money broker, let's say, we're going to ship televisions or whatever, jeans from China down to wherever it's going to go. And so now there's mirror transaction happens, and it's, with China, obviously it's, it's very hard to get any information, and you're just speculating. But from the piece I see is the cash movement in the United States.
Man, so what can you do with it? What are you doing with it? So now that you're working on this, what kind of things do you think it is supporting from, or the proceeds of?
So right now I'm working with, various attorneys within in the district in New Jersey, and I'm going to name drop another one, Mark Pesci. We call him Marco. He's a young attorney who's, very aggressive, and he's now overseeing the task force from the DOJ's perspective in New Jersey. And we are, we're working through a series of cases that, obviously I can't get into, but it's, there's been a lot of, movement, and, it's very involved.
Dang. Well, let's see. Where do we go? We can't be
So, so, so,
being
so
very
there,
non-specific about it.
but so there's a term, a professional money launderer. And I talked about the SUA and money laundering, and Steve, you brought up the knowledge. When you can segregate the knowledge from the cash, and now it's harder to prove the money laundering piece of it. So building, trying to get into that knowledge is a lot different, because it's so segregated now. So now you got to go back to the old school ways of looking at the movement of cash, and then working into that.
So with the Chinese, and you mentioned bulk cash, and I was reading another article here. I was trying to catch up with what you were saying. Do they want the bulk U.S. dollars in China, or they want those laundered and then just electronically transferred?
Well, no. So they want to get their money out of China, right? So, for whatever reason, you can speculate all you want, whatever reason it could be. The Chinese government could come in and take your money, or corruption, or whatever. They want to get their money out of China, and they want to invest into the United States. So there was a recent article from one of the senators that talked about, the Chinese buying up farmland, and that seemed to be, a big
Very
concern.
close to some defense installations that just happened to give them a clear view of like sensitive nuclear sites we have
Right.
as well.
So I don't know any of that part of that.
I can neither confirm nor deny, Senator. Yes.
No, but that is something that is a concern, and there's a lot of different things that are happening, and I don't mean to seem cagey. I just don't want to, there's a lot of ongoing investigations that I can't speak of. So, that there's a there was a recent Senate meeting about banking where they talked of one of the cases, where we had it was $650 million. We just had a recent plea of. So there's like a lot of movement in that. So it's we're looking at it. I don't know really what else to say about it, but it's out there, and the Chinese have an ability to undermine the traditional money laundering because there's a need for the cash. And if anything, it's okay. What's happening with this cash? And that's
You know what this sounds like? This sounds like what they've done in certain Islamic countries. It's called a hawala.
Mhm.
Are you familiar with
You
hawala?
read my mind.
Yeah.
That's the question I was going to ask.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. It's just basically what it does is money never leaves, but a transaction, or basically it's a chit or something that says, "Hey, you're entitled to this much money in another place." Now the money never leaves, but then it appears somewhere else, and like you say, the vig is taken out of it. Somehow these guys obviously make money, but yeah, the money never leaves, so you don't have to repatriate it. But that was one of the biggest threats I know after 9/11. Some of the biggest cases out here. You got the Holy Land Foundation in 2005, huge money laundering case down in Houston. You've got right after 9/11, they raided a couple charities out here for money laundering. Money was going back. I mean, people sometimes, I think, look at this and they go, "Oh, I'd rather have SEAL Team 6 come in or a SWAT team come in," not realizing, guys, money makes the world go round. You want to go after something, follow the money, take out their means of support, their means of logistics, and you can do, like Steve said, not only can you hurt their feelings and take their toys, but you can cripple an organization by removing their ability to get and use and move funds.
Yeah, and then you add a whole nother level, that's the trade-based money laundering. So if you take something of value and you're moving your money in a way that is, let's take cell phones for instance. You're buying cell phones and then shipping the cell phones to another country, and then they're being sold. Well, you just laundered your money through the purchase and selling of cell phones, and then that could happen with cars, or it could happen with anything. There was a big case out of Los Angeles with the fashion district out there, and there's there's a number of ways to move money, and to launder money, and it's just
What's one of the most creative ways
oh
you've
boy.
seen or you've heard of?
I actually said this to Helmstetter when I first started. I'd love to get 5 senior agents in a room and teach me and show me what's the best way to move money. And with the advent of all of these electronic means of payment, and P2P transfers and Venmo and PayPal, and all of these ways, I mean it's harder and harder to track. And it's, like I said, it's not just cash, and then you add the whole crypto piece of it. Yeah, it's
Bitcoin, Ethereum, to where you can now settle transactions in 10 minutes across the globe, where it used to take, a couple, 3 days.
and we talked about the grand jury process, which is a slow process to begin with. I mean, you could have moved money a million different ways between when I between the grand jury piece of it. So it's difficult, it's challenging, but that's what makes it fun from my side of it.
Oh, so what else should we know about the Chinese money laundering? Obviously, it's got the attention of the Senate, the Congress. Are there new rules? You think new laws that are going to come out that are going to help us with that?
They listen. They're always looking at the different pieces of it. And you hear about all these these shell companies that are being used, and beneficial owners and stuff like that. Like, so I think it's just the transparency part of who owns what, and tying it back to, like, we briefly talked about Smurfs. Smurfing is a big piece of that, and that's
Smurfing is Murphy going down to the beach in his thong. That's called smurfing.
That's called exciting. That's called exciting. That's what that is.
But yeah, it's using people that have no idea what it's going, and they're just getting a small piece of the pie, and they're the low hanging fruit that we see, and that the banks see. But there's different people on the back end that are moving the puppet strings. Yeah, right.
Coordinating all of that. These guys don't know. They don't. Just one Smurf doesn't know another Smurf. They just know they're taking money down. It was funny. My first quote money laundering case I ever did. I was just being foolish. You would wait until the hotels and Dillons or some of the food stores would throw out their Western Union
Hmm.
receipts, and because you couldn't go in and get them, but once you threw them in the trash, then you could take it, right? Then and just started
Dumpster
putting
diving.
yeah, dumpster diving, dude. Wasn't above that for food, for a break, and for these things. Hey, man, I didn't get paid that much, but I mean that was interesting too because then it's like you'd start seeing patterns. I was a music major, and so I see things in patterns. But you start seeing the same names going to the same places over and over again, and you started seeing that 5,000 here, 3,000 here. I mean, not huge money, but by the time I got done, I actually sat in the basement of the little apartment we were living in. I actually had these Western Union things all over the wall and the floor and stuff. My wife's going, I can't vacuum with all this shit all over the floor here.
Well, when I was in Miami, we were following the Smurfs, just because you're trying to build a financial case. And you'd wait till the end of the day, and almost every time they would take the trash out at the end. It's in the evening. They've gone back to wherever they live, and they'll take the trash out. Then you go in, you can find their list of amounts that they deposited and what banks they were going to. Sometimes it was in code, so you'd have to work on trying to decode it. But I was also just looking up too. Remember the case in 2007 where down in Mexico they seized it was over $200 million in cash from the Chinese businessman down there, and to going back to your explanation there, Keith, of how they're trying to keep the money out of China. I mean, the guy had 207 million in US dollars, 18 million in Mexican pesos, 200,000 euros. What the heck is he going to do with that money down in Mexico? He lost it all is what happened. But, you know, he obviously didn't want to move it back to China.
Well, my understanding is Mexico also beefed up their currency laws probably around that time. So, there was probably more eyes on him trying to move that money in Mexico.
I'm just shocked that nobody robbed him, that a gang didn't go in and take all that money back
right.
from
Well,
him.
that's a whole other thing. Some of the cases that I've been involved in, and people are just walking around with it. Yeah, it's crazy. You're like, how do they not realize what a target they are?
But the other thing that concerns me though, and this goes back, look, China is we hear a lot about Russia. We hear obviously a lot about the cartels and stuff. But what worries me about China is their long-term plan for this. Back actually in 1996, there was a businessman by the name of Chung in California. They had donated three, 400, $500,000, whatever, to the Democratic National Committee. I'm not picking on politicians. I am. I mean, politicians will take money, but the FBI traced this money back to the country of China. I mean, you talk about money laundering. Now you've got the country, the Chinese Communist Party, sending money, and they've got a long term. See, here's the thing that concerns me about China. They think long term. We're thinking in election cycles, every 2 years, every 4 years, 6 years. They've been doing this for 30 years, 40 years now. I mean, I'm looking at this right, between 1904 and 1996, Chung donated $366,000 to the DNC. The FBI traced all of that back through the embassy to the country of China. They're not just money laundering. I mean, they're money laundering also to bribe, to do certain things over here too. So I don't know if I have a question there. I'm just making a point. Damn it.
You know what? And I mean,
Feel free to pile on.
I'm shocked here because I'm doing a little research as we're talking here. Just Google Chinese money laundering and look at it's a huge amount of cases there that have been prosecuted here in the United States. So if those are just the ones that are being found out, and I'm sure it's just scratching the surface. So it's running rampant.
Take Chinese out of it. A lot of these money launderers are just looking to make a small piece of the pie, right? They're looking the other way, and it just so happens that there is a need to move money out of China. They call it this RMB exchange. It's the Chinese currency. They're just trading it, and it's just the backfeed is ill-gotten gains from the drug organizations, and they have a need to move it, and so there's and it's not there's other ways that are there could be tax evasion involved. There could be a stockpile of money that is sitting there, and somebody just wants to convert it, and they're using this organization to do it. But there's a majority of what we see involves this RMB exchange, this the Chinese currency needing to move out of China. And if there's a flow of money that moves, from country to country and ultimately goes into China, well, we're not going to trace it. And then you're going to see it come out of China, and you don't know what happened in between. You can't tell that story.
And yeah, you can't make that link. Let me ask you this: what's one of the things that may concern you? Because a while back I was investigating some stuff around cryptocurrency and who was doing what. And believe it or not, on Facebook at one point, Hamas and Hezbollah actually had Facebook pages up where they actually had the ability you could donate to jihad using Bitcoin, cryptocurrency.
Yeah, I don't have any experience with that.
What you mean donating to terrorist
Good answer.
organizations
Yeah,
or
right, exactly.
investigating them?
I mean, the way I understand it, with anything with Bitcoin, it's the on and off ramp, right? So Bitcoin or some currency, you're ultimately going to want to, convert it, move it, and then use it. So what are the on and off ramps of buying and selling the crypto?
So, but the reason I ask that, now that you've been on the inside, what concerns you most about what's coming out? Is it like you say, some of the tech, the cryptocurrencies? Is it the Venmos and the PayPal's and the ways that you can easily move money? What's going to be one of the biggest challenges to U.S. law enforcement to stop, illegal money laundering? Stop, because we just had about 3 episodes ago, we had Natasha Hersig on here, who is a victim of human trafficking. There is a ton of money being made by the cartels right now in human trafficking and sex trafficking and stuff like that. And I'm looking at how's that money moving around. So I'm kind of looking at, if you're looking at your crystal ball, where are some of the things that you think are going to cause some of the biggest issues for us to be able to get that visibility into what's really happening out there?
Well, obviously the speed of movement of money, right? You can move money click of a button. And it's hard. And then what happens is it gets commingled and moved into legitimate source, and then comes back out. I mean, it's the the speed of the way it moves is alarming. But again, I focus the on and off ramp, and then trying to tell the story as to, okay, what is this? And why is it happening in this fashion, and then trying to climb the ladder. And then again, obviously there's multiple layers involved, and so it's working through the different layers. And I think traditionally, if I'm looking at the on ramp, I might be getting the low hanging fruit, and now trying to climb the ladder. And whether or not it's there's a separation in there, or somebody just doesn't know, that's a problem. But that's where having all your different partners there is I might see one thing and then be willing to reach out to law enforcement agents in a totally different region and tell them, listen, I see something here, what are you seeing? And we are making the connections that we might see, then tell the story. So I guess that's the problem, and then the solution, and we touched upon it very early on, is being able to work across different jurisdictions, and not saying, this is my shiny object, nobody's touching it. We have to be able to put our to work together, and that's the success we're having, is the relationships that I'm developing, and the different groups are developing, and being able to work with people in different parts of the state, and seeing the little piece that they're seeing, and then communicating that back to us, and then us telling them, okay, well, this is a larger piece we're seeing, and them saying, oh, well, that makes sense, and then just collaborating, going forward. So I guess, we talked about what the problem is, but that's the potential solution. And then also having aggressive, AUSAs that are rolling up their sleeves. Like, I can't speak highly enough of Marco and some of the other AUSAs that I'm working on with. It's just, they're working themselves 20 hours a day, and this is not even a trial. This is the number of cases that they're taking on. It's crazy.
You mentioned commingling of funds. So you've got your dirty money being transferred into legitimate, I guess, bank accounts where there's legitimate money in those accounts. So now you commingle your dirty money in with legitimate money. Why is that not seizable?
Oh, it is. It is. Like, once you have the proofs that there's dirty money involved,
But can you seize the dirty money and the legitimate money? They'll say the clean money just for terminology's sake.
In my experience, I primarily just go after the dirty money. But at the end of it, you talked about money judgments. That's where, you can then have the money judgments over, everything. So in my experience, we are just following the dirty money.
Well, Murph, you're asking that question. Is there something you want to disclose on this podcast that we should know about? The pool, what I mean? It's like you're financing your move down to the beach. What do we got to know about?
Hey, I'm just tickled to death because they're out here building the frame for this retaining wall. They just showed up, and then it stormed like for an hour and a half. But they're out there working. I can hear the hammers out there right now.
I got a solution to all your problems, Keith. If you want to be able to have more effective interagency cooperation, make an arrest, put out a press release, and everybody will say, "Hey, we're looking at that guy too, right?" We've spent all this money on all these information systems, and yet what it takes is putting out a press release to say we just arrested this mope, and you got 5 agencies beating down your door going, "Hey, we're looking at this guy too."
Well, and that's what happened in the plane case. That's exactly what happened. He was arrested at the border, and all of a sudden, there's information out there, and they're like, "No, that's our guy," and he gets indicted in the Western District of New York, and we're like, "Okay, there it goes. We have the money laundering side. We're gonna package it up, and you're gonna take it for your case, and then it then comes back down to New Jersey, and we're at trial." So
Yeah, we'll teach you. We'll do a superseding indictment, and we'll bring it all back to New Jersey and get him for everything.
But again, it's all the working
It's all teamwork,
relationships exactly.
Well, you just pointed out too, just real quickly, you pointed out too, you can't afford to be pissing on everybody else's Cheerios because you're going to get into these big cases and you're going to find yourself on the outside looking in if you're the John Wayne type, always wanting to take over, and be the tip of the spear on everything. Sometimes you're the lead dog, sometimes you're not.
Yeah. As investigators, sometimes we get a little overly protective of our little investigations, not realizing what the huge benefit could be gained if you just deconflicted and shared your information and, played nice in the sandbox. But when I was talking about the commingling of funds, and this was back when I was in Miami, late 80s, early 90s, when you're trying to build these cases and you could identify, through dumpster dives or subpoenas, whatever, getting their account information, you want to seize those accounts. And one of the problems we were having back then was showing, how can we prove the money in the accounts all dirty versus, well, we know that this $1.5 million is dirty that just went in his account, but there's $4 million in the account. And what we were seeing back then was that the courts were not as sympathetic to us seizing those accounts when we couldn't prove all of it was dirty. And then the other thing was it was taking so long to get a seizure warrant. Hell, they'd move that money in and out in just a matter of the day.
Well, and also at the end of the last thing you want to do is take somebody's money who they believe is legitimate and could be just a victim of another movement. They think it's coming in from something else.
Well, and I'll tell you, one of the dangers has been too, you'll have a lot of these task forces working interdiction and stuff. And the biggest threat to law enforcement is bad case law. It's people out there just overhanging, the surfboard out there and seizing just everything simply because they can, as opposed to have you got the indicia as their facts and circumstances that shows you that these are ill-gotten gains, not some poor migrant guy maybe who's got 8,000 in cash or whatever, and that's his life savings and he's moving somewhere. Bad case law is one of the biggest threats to cops, as well as the criminal actors. And that's where I think one of the biggest areas for improvement, I think, and I just say this as somebody who's been involved, in the sides of it too, is I just think that's one of the key things is using the judgment you talk about is just because we can seize it doesn't mean we ought to. We ought to look at, can we prove it? Is it really tied to something, or is it just some poor guy out here just caught up in a set of circumstances that's got 15 grand on him? It's his life savings. And if you take it away from him, and I know his chances of getting that money back, you got a better chance of seeing God trying to get through the federal system and get your money back.
And a majority of my cases that go through our judicial review. I mean, and that's the benefit of being on a task force that is tied, with Department of Justice and IRSCI, and we've had the attorneys involved in the paperwork and in the judicial review. So
What do you mean by that? The judicial review? Is that where the assistant U.S. attorneys and the judges review it before you actually do the seizure, as opposed to field stops? Where you're out in the field.
Not to take away from the field stops, though. If for the talented we'll say interdiction officers, but any police officer that has done field seizures on a traffic stop, if you do it correctly, there's absolutely no problem.
Well, and that comes down to your training and experience and the research you've done into the targets, right? And that's another part of it. Yep.
We had, when I was stationed when I came out of Columbia, I got stationed in Greensboro, North Carolina, and I was working a lot with the different agencies down there, and especially the Highway Patrol. And there's a trooper down there, Tim Cardwell, who's still his lifelong friend, one of the best interdiction guys I've ever met in my life. And they were making so many interdictions on I-85 between Greensboro and Charlotte. I mean, they were kicking butt and taking names. And so he would call me and I'd jump on the databases. They're calling EPIC, the El Paso Intelligence Center, run by DEA, which has databases that you can get information. And so the defense attorneys in North Carolina at the state level were researching how to defeat that, because they would call us and say, give the money back. Well, I'm sorry, I'm a federal agent. You're a state attorney. You can't tell me to do that, because state law cannot supersede federal law. So what they were doing is so let's say Morgan gets pulled over. He's got $500,000 cash, exhibits all the signs, and there's probable cause to seize the money. He calls his attorney. His attorney would call a state judge who would immediately issue an order to return that cash immediately, and the order would go to the trooper. Well, the trooper was calling me and saying, here's our facts, here's our circumstances. Will you authorize seizure of this money? And I would do my checks real quick, and we do this as quick as we could, because the defense attorney's talking to the judge. And once I said, yes, I adopt your case, then they no longer had to honor that judge's order. It got so bad that the troopers, even if I was off duty on a weekend or a night, would come to my house and turn over, and they had to convert the money into a financial instrument. I wouldn't take cash, but they would come to my house and deliver it to me, so the judge couldn't say, you still have physical possession, return it immediately. Oh, sorry, we already turned it over to a DEA agent.
Well, where do troopers go to launder that much money in the middle of the night and give you a financial instrument you're willing to accept, Murph?
Actually, most of them were on between Monday through Friday, because I think that the transporter, the bulk cash transporters, thinks that, they're not going to suspect us doing out here in broad daylight. It just worked out. It was fantastic.
Plus, the banks are open Monday through Friday too. So yeah,
and you piss off a lot of judges when you do that too. But hey, they were state level and we were feds.
So there you go, nana nana boo boo. Yeah. You've never heard that before, have you, Keith? I'm a fed.
Oh, I've heard that before.
Hey, brother, Keith, you probably don't know this, but I was a local cop for almost 12 years before I became a fed. I know what you're talking about.
Yeah.
Hey, no, we love all of them. But let's talk real quick too about what you're doing now. So you are a man who obviously doesn't like to be at home or see his wife or kids, because you've got 4 different jobs now that you're doing. What is it? Accreditation manager, working with IRS and DEA. When do you go home? Do you just have a bed there in the PD?
No, I definitely have it good, but it's so it's funny. Like I'm staring at you through my Morristown computer, and then behind me is my IRS terminal. So I swivel back and forth. And then when my doors open, they can kind of tell, okay, he's working Morristown stuff, he's working IRS stuff, he's doing DEA stuff. If depending on where my back is to the door.
Hey, I gotta point out a mistake on that IRS tax return of mine that you pulled up back there, man. I didn't make that much money last year.
I don't have tax returns back there. But no, so I, with accreditation, that is a full-time job within itself. But I have to rely on everybody in the agency here to get me the different pieces that they're involved in, and to get me the proofs that show that we're following our policies and procedures here, and to make sure that our written directives are up to speed. And again, that is me reaching out to other people in this agency for help, and then I go back and I'm constantly looking at Morristown emails and going back to the IRS and DEA emails and trying to juggle. It works. I'm happy to be doing it. I have aspirations after this job. And I was told by one of the AUSAs, when he says, if you want to stay in this, just keep your foot in the door and keep learning the new trends. And
What are your aspirations when you say after this? How much time do you have in? How long do you have to spend before you can punch out?
So within New Jersey, a typical cop will do 25 years. And then they recently passed a burnout provision. It's been on the books, but now it's kind of like it's in limbo, where it's 20 and out, and that will all depend on your what your pension will be. But so I've always been told to keep my options open, and that's exactly what I do. I love the police job. I love doing the casework. But I'm just going to always keep my options open, and whether it be, a contracting job or a bank job, or something that involves the movement of money, I think that's will probably be in my future after Morristown Bureau of Police.
I was going to say, you're going to be in high demand. You've probably heard of Association of Certified Fraud Examiners, ACFE, and all the different organizations. You get those certifications in your accounting background.
Yeah, ACAM, CFE. It's all stuff that I've looked into doing, but finding the time to get it done is a whole nother beast eventually.
Well, I got something that'll help you. Some career advice. No is a complete sentence. When somebody says, "Hey, we want you to do this now," you're a lieutenant now. You can say no.
Yeah.
That's never. I always try not to say that. I always try and take on whatever challenges come my way.
That's what good officers do.
So in New Jersey, at 25, when you get 25 and out, is that it? Do you get your full amount of the pension, or does it graduate?
So we're in a defined plan. So there's a certain percentage depending on when you came on in the, like, I've been on for almost 20 years. So my defined plan might be different that somebody came on 5 years ago. So there has been some changes, and so yeah, but now with inflation and all that other stuff, you never know where you're going to be with the defined plan. So
I got some friends now, with the way the stock market went, they got to be dead 7 years before they can officially retire. It's just everything's taking a hit.
I knew what I signed up for when I got involved in this. Like, I was on the right path in the financial industry, and I said, you know what, I'm taking a step back, and I want to get involved in law enforcement. And I was fortunate that my career went to where I am now, because I ultimately wanted to do financial investigations, white collar crime in the FBI, and I'm now doing it full circle, but with IRS criminal investigation, which, to be honest, I didn't even know it was an option when I was going through school. It just never came across my my course of looking at a career. And
isn't it amazing, once you start getting into this stuff, the number of other federal agencies there are you've either never heard of, or divisions, or databases, or things. I never knew the FBI had an art theft database. So I was doing work down at an art theft database. Yeah. The big paintings and everything go into an art theft database. I was like, gosh, those agents would have it easy. They got their wine, they sip around, a little bit of brie, and they're talking about which paintings are going for what. It's a cushy life.
Everybody
Hey,
has their
for the
niche.
money.
Everybody has their niche, right?
And you did, and the financial stuff served you well. So you obviously didn't do the job for the money, but your involvement with money has made a huge difference. And I just want to tell you too, man, salute for doing that stuff. Because I can tell you personally, being here in Washington, D.C. area, 9/11, Murph and I have talked about this. When you walk across, you see the Pentagon burning, you see this stuff going on. You guys had it really bad, obviously, in New York. But you realize too is that it's not the sexiest thing, like you say, when you go to court and you're showing a bunch of documents. But people really need to understand how important it is to take out the bad guys and girls at the knees by taking away their toys, taking away their money, and make it impossible for them to do their business, because they can't move money, they can't get money, they can't do anything with it. So I mean, for us, just from as a tax-paying citizen, first of all, thank you for being revenue positive in your position, like DEA.
That's what I was trying to do. But listen, I surround myself with good people. I've been very fortunate with that, and I tried to drop a lot of names because there was a lot of people involved in my career to get me to where I'm at, and even the support of my chief here, Darnell Richardson. It's great, and I've been, like I said, I've been very fortunate to be around hardworking, smart people. And I'd be remiss if I didn't bring up, who I'm working with now. Carla Nastasi, who reached out to Murph originally. He's the original, fan of the show, and said, I think this would be amazing that if you'd be on there, and pitched me to you guys. He's who I now work with. I brought up Steve Helmstead or Mike McGarry. Now it's Carlo Nastasi, and he's a hard worker and takes on a lot of pieces, and is not a no guy. And then we have a financial analyst, Linda Massessa, who's a retired agent, special supervisor. She's a retired supervisor. She did her stint in private industry and came back as a financial analyst, and she's gold in terms of her knowledge and experience. And so that's the current team that I'm working on or working with. And then, with the different groups, I'm working with Group 3 in DEA as case specific. And these guys are great. And they profess that they're not financial guys. They're hard-nosed drug and street guys. And it's fun when they come and ask questions and want to learn about, doing the financials. And listen, you're going to sell drugs to make money. And that's just what the nature of the beast is. And the money part always kind of gets forgotten, but it's if you know what you're doing, you know what you're looking for, it's and it brings you to the top level people. You sell a kilo of cocaine and you're the middleman, you might be getting $500 to $1,000. But if you're the head guy, you're making some good money, and you got to park it somewhere. So that's so those guys in Group 3 have been great to me. And the DEA, although I don't sit down there, I get down there a lot, and there's a lot of support there, for this type of stuff, and the various groups that I've come across, like they've, I haven't had a really bad experience, working, in this realm, and it's partly because of the people that I've been around and I've had a chance to work with, and it really has been. I don't want it to end. Like I really enjoyed doing it. I was devastated when the town brought me back, but I kept my foot in the door, and now I'm back doing it part-time, and killing two birds with one stone with accreditation, and trying to make my mark here. And I was gone for some time, so the guys and girls here, I'm still getting to know a lot of the younger people, and so it's good. The law enforcement profession has gotten a really bad rap over the last few years, and you would hate to see people turn away from it, because there's a need for it. And at some point you hope that the rhetoric turns around, and people are excited to get hired back into this, and to do this job, because it's important. And I just, like I said, I've been very fortunate in my career. And my dad asked me, why do you want to do this? And I didn't really have to answer until he saw my body language with why I wanted to do it. Like this is a calling, and like I said, I've been very fortunate with the opportunities I've had, and the people I've worked with.
You're right. It's not for everybody. And I'm glad you mentioned Carlo, because and a big shout out to him for contacting us and telling us about you. He was so complimentary of you, both in his original message to me and then talking to him on the phone when we were trying to find out more about you and get your contact information and everything. And
But I got to tell you, it was close, man. When we got your college transcript and we saw your grades, we said, I don't know if we can have him on, man.
Oh, I can tell you a story. I took one class pass fail, and I failed it because I didn't read the second side of the syllabus. So I had to go back to the teacher. No, I did fairly well in college.
And that's the cool thing about having you on here is you're the only second. I know you're not an IRS agent, but related to IRS that we've had on the series here. And this is, we're over 60 episodes out there now. We had Jeff Sandy on, who was an IRS agent in West Virginia.
Yeah,
fantastic stories.
Very impressive.
And if you listen to his story, you heard me say, I never worked with any IRS guys. Well, I did, but the group that was assigned to my office when I had the strike force in Atlanta, those guys weren't so much going out in the field like Jeff was, and sounds like some of the guys that you work with. So guys and gals. So
well, here's the thing: like anywhere you come across in any profession, you're going to have your dead wood. But within IRS, the people that I've worked with and come across, they are they're aces, and it speaks volume for I know whenever you hear IRS, you're like, oh my God, what? But the knowledge and experience and what criminal investigation brings to the table, it really is impressive. And you brought up the OCDETF cases. I think any agent that brings an OCDETF case wants an IRS agent on their case to just give them a different angle to look at, and to bring different leads to the table. I mean, it really is. It's impressive to watch and to hear the various stories and cases that have come up over the years, through the agency, and they gave me the blessing to do this, and I'd be remiss if I couldn't thank them for giving me the opportunity, letting me do it for so long. I've been doing this for since 2010, and with the little hiatus, I've been fortunate to work very good cases, and every case you think is going to be your career case, but I thought the plane case was going to be a career case, but now the stuff that I'm seeing and doing, even just at a part-time basis, is really incredible. And it's fun to be a part of.
You're being very humble on here, Keith, and we don't accept that crap. We don't accept that crap. So
I try. Well, listen, I still have many more years in my career, so I don't want to piss anybody off. But
being humble is one of my greatest strengths. I always tell people.
Just ask, I'll tell you. No, but it's obvious. It's obvious from what Carlo told us and the research we've done on you and the cases you've explained and your expertise in the field of money laundering. It's obvious that you're a pro at what you do, and thank you so much for coming on the show, man. It's been an honor and a pleasure to have you on.
Thanks for having me.
And if I ever decide to launder money, I'm going to just give you a call, but I'm going to ask it in a way that says, "Hey, look, I know a guy doing this." No.
Offer him 18%, Morgan. He'll probably go for
18%.
I don't profess myself to be an expert. I'm constantly learning, and I could tell a good story on Excel. But to put financial investigations in the words, in that somebody that is the expertise that I rely on from the U.S. Attorney's Office, because again they've been great, and I've learned so much through them and the AUSAs that I've worked with.
Well, we've got 4 hours left. So is there any other names you want to drop? We can fill the rest of the time.
Well, I got to go through my notes and see what I forgot. I
don't worry. We'll add a door and a half worth of names to this. You just get your spreadsheet out and send it to us. We'll put it on the website.
Yeah, I mean, you asked me if there was something that I wanted to promote. I wanted to promote the people that I work with.
You did a good job doing that.
That was important to me.
That's excellent.
And I'm sure I forgot other people.
Well,
but,
they weren't forgotten. It's just the issues of time. It's like, hey, look, it's like you're at the award ceremony. You can't mention everybody, but look, everybody was important to the job you do, right? So
absolutely,
yeah,
it's all about teamwork.
Exactly.
Yeah. Well, for the citizens of New Jersey, and by the way, you're too far from the Garden State Parkway, so I can't ask you what exit you life off of, right?
No, I'm closer to 287 than the Parkway. We'll put it that way.
Okay. All right. Yeah. Well. There you go, folks. Hey, by the way, too, quick factoid, go to have a little history lesson. You know what one of the names of one of the Revolutionary forts was in his county there during the Revolutionary War?
What?
Fort Nonsense. Real fact.
Yeah, well, I could tell you stories about guys getting stuck up there because trees have fallen or what have you. But no, it's actually a pretty cool little nook up there. Yeah,
it's some great Revolutionary War stuff. Yeah. Well, hey, look, we got to bring this to a close. But hey, look, again, Keith, folks can't see this, but this is me saluting you, sir, saying, sir, thank you for your service to your community, to your country.
Absolutely.
Thank you for taking the toys and the money away from the bad guys and girls. And we just want to say thank you, real seriously, thank you for coming on and spending your time, because you got lots of stuff going on. We've heard sirens, we've heard gunshots. Well, not really gunshots, but we've heard people going, hey, is this Keith done yet? Is he done milking it?
Yeah.
Hey, but seriously, man.
Yeah, thank you. It's an honor to be on here with you guys, and you've had a lot of great guests on, and it's
we just added another one to it, so you did well.
Absolutely.
This is a great story, man.
Thank you.
All right, you all, everybody hang tight. You guys don't go anywhere. Everybody else, stay tuned for the debrief.
So here's a guy who said at first he didn't academically do well, but he had a head for numbers, played football, PricewaterhouseCoopers, Major League Soccer, was he wanted to, get into all the sports stuff, but yet instead what he does, I mean, I'm serious, you got to be, I don't know where he finds the time between what he does with DEA, between what he does with IRS, between what he does for Morristown. Yeah, I mean, you got to salute. If people only understood how much time and effort goes into it, these folks do not get paid enough for the time and effort they put in.
That's the truth. And then you heard, he ended up having to create all the investigation and background work and paperwork to get accreditation for their police department in New Jersey. I mean, and then on top of that, you got a family. Is like we said in the intro, he just took his daughter down to the University of Georgia. And that's, they're not flying down there, they're driving down there. So it's like this guy, I don't know if he's got like 28 hours in his day instead of 24 hours like the rest of us, but Keith, you're doing a phenomenal job. It was a true honor to have you on here. You're one of those guys, like when we had Bob Mazer on here that did the movie The Infiltrator. So smart that I don't understand a lot of the stuff that you're talking about, but darn glad to have you on our side, brother.
1,200 cash transactions, entries he had to sort through. Took up a door and a half is what he said. And so you think how about mind numbing that is. I have a hard enough time just putting the invoices together for some of the work I do. And I've only got 5 lines on those things. He's talking about 1,200 entries, watching the money flow and then figuring all this stuff out.
Yeah. Yeah. What's the significance of that? Well, the significance is I'm blind and just bored out of my brain, but just glad to have people like him on our side.
Just don't take pictures of your neighbor if you're blind.
That's still one of the funniest ones we've had on here so far.
I would take, but my question is then how does he know what she looks like if he's blind? Maybe he's just saying I wouldn't do it because I'm a good guy, but
Yeah, and if you're wondering what we are talking about here, you probably fast forwarded through the intro to today's show. So
you got to go listen to Small Town Police Blotter.
There you go.
Hey, but again, Keith, this is us saluting you, sir. Thank you again for coming on. Thank you to the folks out there who are on the front lines of terrorism,
yes,
of narcotics trafficking, of people who want to do America harm, and it's not sexy, folks, to watch cash transactions and see these. But let me tell you, at the end of the day, money is what makes the criminal world go round. And if you can take away their money, you can take away their toys, and you can take away. And you go after who you should be going after are the people who are really profiting from this, the heads of these organizations and the cartels and the bad guys like the case we talked about.
Yeah, Keith, thank you again. God bless you, brother. And God bless all the law enforcement professionals out there that are protecting us every freaking day, 24/7, 365.
And Keith, he went on vacation just right after he got done with this. I don't know if the vacation was scheduled or he had to take it after we kept him for a marathon session. So either way, enjoy your time off. You better not be working, pal. That's all I can say. And let me once again reiterate, Keith says that he has absolutely no access to our tax returns. So that's a no-no. So we just want to clarify that. We were joking IRS, and that don't audit me. But anyway, hey guys, but we want to thank you once again. This is a great episode, and these are the type of things that we really love keeping us going. But if you love this episode, if you love the podcast, head on over to Apple and Spotify, hit those 5 stars. It's magic. We don't know how it works. It's David Blaine, David Copperfield, Magic Kingdom, all rolled up in one. Also, head on over to GameOfCrimesPodcast.com for more info. Blah, I can't even talk. I need more coffee or beer, one or the other. That's where we put a lot of our good stuff about the show. We're constantly updating it. We add the merch, the Patreon, and things like that. Follow us on the social media at Game of Crimes on Twitter, at Game of Crimes Podcast on Facebook and the Instagram. PayPal, if you want to use PayPal, just go to gameofcrimespodcast@gmail.com or use paypal.me/gameofcrimes, whatever it makes it easier. But Murph, we close out with saying, but if you're going to be somewhere, everybody's got to be somewhere, right? What's the place they really ought to be?
On Patreon. Come over and check us out. It's, you know what? You don't even have to love us. Just like us a lot. You can go in there and listen to some of the other things. One of the things that I love that we do on Patreon is the Q&A session where our listeners send in the questions, and we have not shied away from answering a single one. And it doesn't have to be funny.
By the way, Katie Clark replied back. She said, we love you guys. I've just given you a hard time. She didn't really mean what she said about me.
Oh, Katie, don't back off. Don't back off. Keep the pressure on him. I'm with you, girl. I'm with you. But that's just an idea of some of the fun we have. And our listeners, the questions can be anything. We'll even talk about our personal lives to a certain degree. So give us a shot. Come to Patreon, see what you think. if you don't like us, just keep paying. That's all we, asking for here. So
there you
it
go,
helps
Murph.
us to
You
keep the
finally
show
have been
going.
trained.
I know.
Do
I
not
didn't say
use
the C word this time.
Word. That's right. All right, guys. Well, hey, let us bring this once again to an end. And again, we thank you guys. You're the reason we do this. Trust me, it's not for the money. We would not even be. We would be more profitable for us to go work at McDonald's and the
Yes.
drive-through lane.
But we're
not
fun.
doing it for the money. We're doing it for the fun. Seriously, we're doing it for the fun and the stories we get to bring you. So we want to tell you once again, thank you for playing the biggest, baddest, most tax compliant, tax friendly, file our quarterlies on time, all the time.
Yes.
Podcast, Game of Crimes.